Now, in a moment, we'll be opening up the discussion to our audience and to you. If you have a question for our panelists, call 1-800-568-9099 or email financialcrisis@ketc.org. Right now, here's some advice from trusted sources about coping with stress from the financial crisis, how to avoid becoming the victim of mortgage fraud, and a reminder of the importance of talking to your lender.
In times of financial crisis, there's always so much stress. One of the things that stress does, especially emotional stress and behavioral stress, is you can find yourself with physical ailments too that are unexplained and don't seem to get better. But once you start talking to somebody about them, these physical problems go away. And one of the first people that finds out that, hey, you've got all this stuff going on, is there something else going on in your life, is your doctor. So ask your doctor.
In a financial mortgage situation, when you're asked to give money up front, you really need to be cautious to give people any money. There are agencies out there that will help you without any money, give you some advice and assistance. And lastly, don't ever sign documents. The only document that you want to sign in a foreclosure or financial situation is with the bank that you owe money to.
When someone is thrown into a tailspin, then everything else in their financial life goes bad as well. So they don't pay attention to their checking account, to their credit card bills. I mean, it seems like a black hole. So the key is to really, from a financial institution, not be afraid of your financial institution and make sure you are still a customer and make sure you're using your power, your rights to help yourself as well.
That number again, 1-800-568-9099. Our lines are open if you have any questions at all for our panelists. And we're going to begin right now with a question from our audience.
Hi, my question's about instant tax refund loans. I really hate those things. I don't understand why people give away their money for an instant loan like that when they're giving away so much of it. Is it just a matter of educating people? Do they not know what they're doing?
Okay, so the instant loans you're talking about when someone is filing a tax return with a tax preparer and they get money back right away?
That's right.
Okay, and then they have to repay
at a huge interest.
What do you think? Are you familiar?
It's awful. Don't do it. Run away. Don't give anybody your money. Keep your money. File your taxes. They're absolutely overcharging you for a ridiculous fees for no real gain to you. Unless there's some immediate crisis that your world is going to come crumbling down unless instantaneously you get the money, and most likely that's not the case. Stay away from those places. File your taxes. Pick somebody else. There's so many around town. Free income tax prep services for lots of folks. Seek one out. They can go do it. Sometimes we're worried about it sounds too good to be true, and if somebody's free doing my taxes, they can't know what they're doing. They're trained. They know what they're doing. Please don't give your money away to any of those folks who are saying rapid refund.
So this sounds like a lot like those payday loans. Is that kind of the same idea?
Look, high interest. It's a scam. Because, again, they're charging a ridiculous amount of money just so you can get your own money back a week or two sooner than you might otherwise.
Okay. Let's go now to our next questioner from the audience.
Hi. I'm a teacher, and I just want to know how we can educate kids so that we never repeat this kind of economic tragedy again in our future, in our nation.
Financial literacy? It sounds like something grown-ups need as well as kids right now.
Go ahead. I think that not only do we have to have it in our school system, but I think that parents need to take an active role in that as well. Because I think so many times parents did not educate their kids on it, so when they get out on their own, they don't realize that how hard they work to get that house or how hard they work to get the things that they've acquired, and they think that they should just have it right away. So I think that it has to be in the school system, but also at home. Go ahead.
Knowledge is power. So again, teaching kids about money. We did a savings program in a school here in the St. Louis region, kindergarten through 4th grade, and we stayed with them for 3 years. And it was amazing how these young children grasped the idea of money. I saw this 4th grader balance their checkbook better than I could balance mine, and that's a skill set that these kids will take with them throughout their lives, and that's the kind of stuff we should be doing now. So when they get offered their credit cards or when they get offered the rapid refund loans, the kids will have knowledge of saying, wait a minute, let me think about this, let me make a wise decision with my money.
And that is a scary scary point because kids in college are receiving credit cards. I mean, I remember I was in the workforce. I've been working for many years, and I had applied for an American Express card and got turned down. My younger brother, who was still in medical school, he was being sent cards. And I was thinking, he's not even out in the workforce yet, but they're preyed upon. It seems like a predatory practice right now.
The credit card industry is one that we're going to have a problem with them here real soon in terms of their practices and what they have done to lots of folks relative to allowing them credit, changing the terms and conditions, and that's the next piece of the financial meltdown we fear is the credit card industry.
Okay, let's take
a lot of the like deceptive advertising tactics that a lot of like payday loan institutions and a lot of refund anticipation companies actually use, and oftentimes, like they'll say, okay, well, for every dollar, $20 for each dollar that each $100 that you borrow, whatnot. And again, that's where financial education comes into play, because to know that you may be paying about 350 to 400% annual interest rate, but the thing is that with the deceptive marketing, deceptive advertising that takes place, a lot of people just aren't really, they're just not really sometimes equipped just to make the right decision to know not to go in that direction.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that grown-ups, too, can really set an example for younger people.
Well, they can. I mean, we've been told you can have everything you want. Well, you can't. That's just not how life works, right? We've been told you can have anything you want whenever you want on demand. Well, and we've bought into that. So now we have to pull back and say, hold on. We can't have everything. We have to manage our money better. We have to put things off. We have to have a degree of sacrifice, which is not a word that we use too often in our vocabulary. But you may have to wait. You may have to save some money. You may have to defer that dinner out to actually save some money. There's a radical concept. Let's save some money as opposed to spending money or pulling out the credit card.
Okay. Let's take another question now from the audience.
Yes. When creditors are trying to collect a debt, can they legally call a family member that does not live with you?
I've heard of that happening. I mean, I've heard of people telling me, yeah, I live in California and I got this call from a guy wanting to know about my brother in Tennessee. How do they find this out? How do they get this information?
They can do that. I mean, they can't disclose the debt. They cannot talk about the debt with that person. But what they're, I think, hoping to do is kind of get that person to call their relative so they make a payment on it.
So there is no ordinance. This gentleman rattled off a long ordinance number, and I figured he was full of hot air.
Not that I know of.
There is?
There's nothing I know of.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, my goodness. It's really interesting, the whole financial literacy piece. What you had mentioned this program that you had done, are there funds available for you to continue that or to broaden it?
No, I mean, back to Todd's point about resource to get stuff done. No, it was a four-year project we did in the University City Schools. It was an exciting project between the kids saving money and this program through Beyond Housing, matching it. All told, these 50-some-odd kids over this four-year window amassed over $100,000 to be put in college savings accounts, the Missouri 529 program, to be rolled over. So when they get to be 18, there'll be funds available for them to go on to post-secondary education. And what it did is not only did it teach about the financial education aspects of it. I mean, they did the checking account and they went to the bank. There was a wonderful Commerce Bank right down the street, and the kids literally walked down the street. And again, the physicality of going in the bank. And a lot of these kids had never been into the bank, and they knew that's my bank where my money is. So again, we're teaching them that, and then we're also positioning them for long-term success, thinking about going to college.
Yeah. The research on this is very interesting because it shows that poor people can save money, especially when they have this matching requirement. They will actually put aside money, and even though they don't have much, right? And it will make them feel better about the future. They're more inclined to go to college, more inclined to continue their education. You know, Ruth, I think it's a little bit, I feel like in this society it's a little like we're living on the midway, and there are these hucksters on every side, you know, trying to get us to sign on to something, and you have to be alert all the time. I feel like I'm pretty educated, but I feel like I'm on the verge of doing the wrong thing, you know, every other day, you know. So we need education, but we also need regulation of these. I drive the streets of St. Louis and I see more of these lenders, these, you know, rent-to-own or rent-to-moan, they might call it, you know, furniture places and the payday loans and all of this, that I think it's, you know, it's getting out of hand. But, you know, you need two sides. You need the education and you need the regulation so that they can't get away with some of these practices.
There is a phone question. Speaking of practices, several callers have called in. They want to know if there's a way to get credit card companies to waive late fees. or reduce interest rates?
Sometimes you can negotiate directly with the credit card company and talk to them if they're willing to waive it. If you have a good credit history, sometimes they'll do that as a courtesy. Sometimes you can talk to them about lowering their interest rate, and you can work with them on that as well. And you can also visit an agency like us, because what we do is we'll work with you to get the lower interest rates with your credit cards.
And I would
not
think
willing to work with you directly.
Yeah, I would think if you have good standing with your credit card company and you have a bill and you see that your interest is pretty high, that you could just call and get it lowered just on the basis of your history.
Many times, but right now with credit tightening, it is a lot more difficult than it used to be. They still want to keep you as a customer, but you still can negotiate with them and hopefully get a lower term on it.
But the idea again is to fight. And don't just assume that, that you have no power and you're at the mercy of whoever. Again, you may not get the results you want, but if you don't venture and make that phone call, you're never going to find out.
Right.
Can you negotiate? Can you make an agreement with whoever that holder of that debt instrument is?
Let's go to another audience question now.
Hi. I'm fortunate that my family is doing okay at present, but what do we need to consider to weather out this crisis long term, and any guesstimate on how long term is going to be?
That's, certainly all the data points we see say 2009 is just going to be an unpleasant year, and we all just have to kind of, take a deep breath and batten the hatches, because it's going to be a rocky year, and then ideally in the beginning of 2010 and ideally in the second half of 2010 things will start coming around. As it relates to everybody, I think just take the time to make a plan, to look at how much you have coming in and how much is going out the door, and look, can I modify, what changes can I make? And in this world that we live in, that we move so fast, we don't always take the time to say, let me just sit at the kitchen table and kind of get everything together in one place. Let me really understand where my money's going and what I'm doing. And if everybody would do that, I would be willing to bet everybody can find a little bit they can save and some expenses that maybe they don't have to have on a regular basis. Save some money. That rainy day is coming. It's getting cloudy. So again, if it's not raining where you're at right now, the rain may be coming.
I think, the phrase, a crisis is too great a thing to be wasted. This is really an opportunity to begin to shift some of our attitudes. And I think that, to get out of the crisis, we're going to need short-term input, like the stimulus bill, but we also need to think long-term. When you think about how to save energy, we need to cut our energy consumption, to deal with social issues, to build more mass transit, to do all sorts of other things. So just like a family, they short-term and long-term. In the long-term, you have to kind of position yourself to have savings for college, for retirement, and all of this. So a crisis is an opportunity at the same time. So I hope that this will really represent a shift in policy and a shift by families and households. We've been living over our head, that's for sure.
That's right. We need to get it turned back. We need to start living within our means, or a little bit below our means, to have savings.
Yeah. We have a phone question from Kathy. It's pretty general. She says, how do I settle or manage my credit cards? It sounds like she just doesn't know where to begin. Sounds like a phone call to you. It's probably
sounds like a phone call to us. That's exactly what we do. We develop a personalized action plan with them. We'll look at their income, we'll look at their budget, we'll look at all their creditors, and we'll give them the options that are available to them. And we'll look at their creditors and see how they can best manage.
And that's pretty much the same with housing, urban league, other.
Make a plan. Make a plan. If you can't do it on your own, talk to somebody.
Right.
Again, it's not brain surgery. You just have to take the time, have this be important to you, and say, as I move forward, I want to be in a stronger financial position tomorrow than I am today, and you can get it done. You just have to be dedicated to it.
Jackie, are there some credit card companies that are better than others? Can you shop around? Can you?
I think that right now with the credit market being like it is, it's really tightening, especially with the credit card debt, and especially if you're in a situation where you have a lot of credit card debt, it's a little bit tougher. But like Chris was saying, you have to fight for it if you call them and get lower rates. But to switch it's not always the best idea either. The best idea is to have that plan to get out of debt.